So you want to start a laundromat business. Good instinct, and here's a number to back that instinct up. One man bought a rundown laundromat for $85,000, using just $30,000 of his own savings. Today, he and his wife own 4 locations, generating $1.8 million a year, with a household net worth of $1.8 million. $8 million a year, with a household net worth over $3 million. He didn't inherit it, and he didn't have some special connection in the industry. He found it on Craigslist. We'll walk through exactly how he did it later in this video, but the short version is that this is not a side hustle with washers in it. Run correctly, it's a real, scalable, numbers-driven operation, and the owners who get it right aren't collecting quarters. They're running tight, disciplined machines that happen to also do laundry. Start with what you're actually buying, because the range here is enormous, and almost nobody researching this business understands why. A rundown existing laundromat, the kind listed by an owner ready to retire, can be bought and lightly renovated for as little as $50,000 to $100,000. A new mid-size store with commercial-grade machines and a proper build-out typically runs $200,000 to $500,000. At the top end, a full ground-up construction project with premium equipment can climb past $1 million. That spread isn't random pricing. It's the difference between buying a working, revenue-generating business on day one versus building one from an empty shell and waiting months for customers to discover it exists. And almost every first-time buyer underweights how much that distinction is worth. Inside that range, equipment is the single largest line item. Commercial washers run $1,500 to $5,000 each. Commercial dryers run $2,000 to $6,000 each. And a typical small to mid-size store needs 20 to 50 machines total, putting equipment alone somewhere between $60,000 and $500,000 depending on count and age. On top of the machines, a card-based payment system, the kind that replaces loose quarters with a laundry card or app, typically costs $40,000 to $80,000 to install across a store. That number looks like a pure convenience upgrade on a spec sheet. It is not. It's a security decision, and the reason will make more sense once you understand what's sitting inside those machines every night. So where does the rest of that opening number actually go? Rent and build-out fill out the remainder. Lease rates for a retail space suited to this business run $1,500 to $10,000 a month, depending on the market, and the space itself needs real plumbing capacity. Most retail buildings simply aren't built to handle 20 or 30 machines drawing and draining water simultaneously, so upgrading water and gas lines is its own expense, often running into the tens of thousands before a single washer is bolted to the floor. Now, the actual mechanics of how the money moves, and this is simpler than almost any other business in this series, which is exactly why it fools people into thinking it's easier to run well than it actually is. Revenue here is built entirely around a number called turns per day. How many times each machine gets used in a 24-hour period. A washer charging $3.50 a load that turns over 3 times a day brings in $10.50. Multiply that across 30 machines, add the dryers on top, and a single, well-located store can generate somewhere between $5,000 and $25,000 a month in gross income. Industry-wide, the average U.S. laundromat now generates close to $504,000 a year, based on recent census-linked industry data, though a smaller neighborhood store typically lands closer to $250,000 to $400,000, and a larger urban location running wash and fold service can push past $600,000. Here's a number that tells you exactly how much precision this business actually rewards. Losing just 1 turn per day on a 40-washer store costs roughly $5,400 a month. Not a slow month, not a bad location generally. 1 fewer cycle per machine per day, every day, compounding into a 5-figure annual loss that never shows up as a single dramatic event. It just quietly shows up as a thinner bank deposit every single week. This is why the location decision matters more here than in almost any business in this series. Foot traffic isn't a marketing problem you solve after opening. It's baked into the math on day one, permanently. So if the machines are running and the location is right, what actually happens to all that revenue? Once revenue is flowing, the profit margin is genuinely strong compared to most small businesses, typically 20% to 35% net, with cash-on-cash returns in a similar range and payback periods of 3 to 5 years. But holding that margin depends entirely on controlling one specific cost, and it's not the one most new owners expect walking in. Utilities are the largest ongoing expense in this business, typically consuming 20% to 30% of gross revenue. Water and sewer alone can run $1,500 to $5,000 a month, depending on machine count and local rates. Electricity, covering the washers, dryers, and lighting, runs $1,500 to $3,000 a month. Gas, which heats the water and fuels the dryers, adds another $500 to $1,500. Added up, and a mid-sized store is looking at $3,500 to $10,000 a month just to keep the water hot and the machines running. Before rent, before insurance, before a single dollar goes toward paying down whatever financed the equipment. Older, inefficient machines quietly kill margins that look fine on paper for exactly this reason. A washer using twice the water of a modern, high-efficiency model doesn't just cost more per load, it compounds across every single turn, every single day, for years, silently eating the exact margin the owner thought they'd locked in. With utilities eating that much of the revenue, what's left to actually pay someone to run the place? Here's the part of this business that makes it genuinely different from almost everything else covered in this series. You can run it with almost no staff at all. Many laundromats operate with one part-time attendant or nobody on site whatsoever, open 24 hours, customers letting themselves in and out, machines collecting payment automatically without a human involved anywhere in the transaction. That's not a corner an owner cuts to save money, it's the actual design of the business, and it's a huge part of why the profit margins hold up as well as they do. Payroll, which eats 40% or more of revenue in a business like a gym or a dog daycare, barely exists here at all. But that same design choice is what creates the business's biggest structural risk, and it deserves a direct statement rather than a soft one. Nobody is there. Coin boxes inside these machines can hold hundreds of dollars in quarters between collections, and they're a known, well-documented target. Industry security guides describe thieves using crowbars, drills, and even sledgehammers to break into coin mechanisms overnight, with nobody around to notice until the next morning's collection run. This is precisely why card-based payment systems, that $40,000 to $80,000 upgrade from earlier, have become standard in newer stores. Less cash sitting in a metal box means less reason for anyone to break in at 3 in the morning in the first place. An unattended store isn't just cheap to run. For large stretches of every single day, it's a building with nobody in it to notice when something starts going wrong. Here's exactly what that looks like when it goes wrong. A laundromat running 24 hours a day, largely unattended, is a building where a fire has hours to grow before anyone notices smoke. Nationally, this isn't a marginal risk. The National Fire Protection Association estimates roughly 15,600 structure fires involving clothes dryers occur in the United States every year, causing around 15 deaths, 400 injuries, and more than $100 million in direct property damage annually. The leading cause, responsible for roughly a third of all dryer fires, is almost embarrassingly preventable. Lint buildup that isn't cleared out often enough, sitting directly beside a heating element for hours on end, in a building where nobody's watching it happen. Zumbrota's Main Street Laundry caught fire in May 2024, displacing the residents above due to smoke damage. 15 months later, it caught fire again, this time with the back of the building fully involved by the time crews arrived, and the same residents displaced a second time. The cause of the second fire was still under investigation at the time of reporting, but the pattern itself is the entire lesson. An unattended commercial laundry running dryers around the clock is exactly the kind of building this national fire data describes, and surviving one fire doesn't inoculate a building against a second one. The thing that makes an unattended laundromat cheap to run, nobody has to be there, is the same thing that gives a small problem hours to become a large one before anyone smells the smoke. None of this means the business doesn't work. It overwhelmingly does, and the survival numbers back that up in a way few small businesses can match. Laundromats carry one of the highest reported survival rates of any small business category, with industry sources citing 90% to 95% of stores still operating 5 years in, a figure most restaurants, retail shops, or service businesses would consider remarkable. The demand is about as recession-resistant as consumer spending gets, since people don't stop washing clothes when the economy slows down, and the total US market now sits at roughly $6.8 to $7.2 billion a year across a little over 17,000 stores nationwide. The real path into this business rarely starts with a fortune, and the clearest proof of that is a man who now calls himself the Laundromat Millionaire. Dave Menz quit his job as a utility lineman after finding a rundown laundromat for sale on Craigslist. He bought it for $85,000, using $30,000 of his own savings and a small business loan for the rest. 7 months in, the store, which he named Queen City Laundry, was bringing in $14,000 a month, but after expenses, he was only clearing about $1,500 in profit. That's the part most retellings skip past too quickly. For the better part of a year, the return on his entire life savings was $1,500 a month. Here's what actually changed his trajectory, and it's the real lesson underneath the story, not just a happy ending bolted onto it. Dave didn't get wealthy because laundromats are magical. He got wealthy because one profitable store, however modestly profitable, became the collateral and the cash flow that financed the second one, which he found in a location with no direct competition nearby, and which turned profitable within 3 weeks instead of 7 months, because he already knew exactly what he was doing by then. 13 years later, he and his wife owned 4 locations that generated $1.8 million in revenue in a single year, with a household net worth over $3 million. The first store didn't make him rich, it made him bankable, and everything after that was leverage compounding on top of a proof of concept he'd already paid for in sweat over that first slow year. So, does starting a laundromat actually work as a business? Genuinely, yes. The survival rate, the margins, and the low staffing requirement make it one of the more forgiving businesses in this entire series. But the same design that makes it forgiving is the design that punishes neglect the most severely. This is a business built to run without anyone watching it, which means the owners who succeed long-term are the ones who show up anyway, checking the lint traps, servicing the coin boxes, replacing the aging machines before they become the reason a dryer catches fire at 2 in the morning with nobody there to see it start. The business runs itself. Whether it runs itself safely, and whether that first slow year becomes the foundation for a second location instead of a reason to quit, is still entirely up to you.